Last week, I sat on the old rocking chair on my porch, watching young couples stroll by. They held hands, laughed happily, and I couldn't help but smile, remembering myself 60 years ago. Back then, I also thought I understood everything about love. How wrong I was. I'm Walter, 80 years old this year, married to Dorothy for 58 years until she passed away last year. If you ask me the secret to keeping a marriage alive, I'll tell you this: it wasn't until I was 75 that I truly understood what love is. How many of you, after decades of living together, still wonder if you truly understand your spouse? How many nights have you lain next to each other but felt more distant than ever? How many times have you asked yourself, where did the love we once had go? Today, with the age and experience of someone who has been through all the ups and downs of marriage, I want to share with you what life has taught me about true love. I met Dorothy in 1965. I was 22, she was 19. Love at first sight, that's what people often say. A beautiful girl with golden hair, a radiant smile, and blue eyes as clear as a summer sky. I fell in love with her from the first moment I saw her in a small coffee shop near the university. We dated for 2 years and then got married. A dream wedding, literally. Dorothy wore a pristine white dress that we had saved up for an entire year to buy. I stood at the altar, watching my beautiful bride walk towards me, believing we would live happily ever after, just like in a fairy tale. The first year was so sweet. We lived in a small one-bedroom apartment, but it was paradise. Waking up in each other's arms, cooking dinner together in the cramped kitchen, spending evenings on the old sofa dreaming of a rosy future. Dorothy would be a teacher, I would be an engineer. We would have a small house with a white picket fence and 3 children. I thought that was love. The feeling of my heart racing every time I saw her. The longing to be together all the time. The sweet dreams of a shared future. I thought that was all a marriage needed. I was mistaken. Then reality hit like a storm. Dorothy liked everything neat and tidy. She folded clothes her way, arranged the refrigerator in order, wanted everything to have a specific place. And me? I was the type to leave things messy, toss my coat carelessly, leave dishes in the sink until there was no more room. Dorothy wanted to save every penny to buy a house. She meticulously recorded expenses, cut coupons, bought things on sale. I, on the other hand, liked to spend more freely. If friends invited me for a beer, I went. If I saw a nice shirt, I bought it without a second thought. Dorothy needed quiet to read books and prepare her lessons. I liked to invite friends over to watch football, talking loudly late into the night. The arguments began. From small disputes about who did the dishes, to big fights about money and lifestyle. At that time, I thought Dorothy had changed. The sweet girl I loved had become difficult, critical, no longer as lovely as before. "Why are you so difficult?" I asked after an argument because I left the sink dirty. "Why are you so careless?" she retorted. We didn't understand that neither of us had changed. We were just seeing each other's true selves after the rosy veil of initial love had lifted. Then the children arrived. Michael first, then Sarah, and finally Tommy. Life became chaotic with baby cries, dirty diapers, and sleepless nights. I worked 12 hours a day to support the family. Dorothy stayed home alone with 3 children, tired and exhausted. We slept in the same bed but lived like 2 strangers. I came home late, exhausted, just wanting to eat dinner and watch TV. Dorothy was busy with the children, tired and stressed. We no longer had time to talk, no longer laughed together, only responsibilities and fatigue remained. There were nights I lay there and thought, is this all that marriage brings? We were like 2 people sharing a house, raising children together, but no longer lovers. The first 15 years of marriage passed like that. We lived like roommates, not like husband and wife. Then one day in 1980, when Tommy was just 15, Dorothy had a mild stroke while cooking dinner. I found her unconscious next to the stove, the pot of soup still boiling vigorously. In the ambulance on the way to the hospital, I held Dorothy's hand and, for the first time in years, I truly looked at her face. A face that had wrinkles I hadn't noticed appearing. The once golden hair was now streaked with silver. The soft hands were now rough from housework. I realized I had lived beside this woman for 15 years but knew nothing about her. Sitting in the hospital waiting room at 2 a.m., I wondered, what did Dorothy dream of? What did she fear? What truly made her happy? I knew she drank coffee with 2 spoons of sugar, liked to watch cooking shows on Sunday afternoons, and didn't like onions. But I didn't know the deep thoughts in her heart. I sat there and realized a painful truth: I was married to a stranger. Fortunately, Dorothy recovered quickly. But that shock woke me up. Coming home from the hospital, I decided to do something I had never done in 15 years of marriage. I asked Dorothy how she felt. Not "Are you okay?" or "Are the kids behaving?" but "What are you thinking? Are you happy? What do you need from me?" Dorothy's answer shocked me to the core. "Walter, it's been 15 years since anyone asked me how I felt." She cried when she said that. And I understood that for all those years, I had treated Dorothy as a part of everyday life, like the refrigerator, like the bed, like something that was always there and didn't need attention. From that night on, I started spending 30 minutes every evening listening to Dorothy talk. Not to argue, not to give advice, not to fix anything. Just to listen. And I discovered something incredible. The woman I thought I knew so well was actually a universe I had never explored. Dorothy had profound thoughts about life that she had never shared because she thought I wouldn't care. She had dreamed of becoming a writer when she was young, writing stories about strong women. She feared she wasn't a good mother, worried that her children would grow up not loving her. She talked about the sleepless nights when the children were young, not because they were crying, but because she lay there listening to their steady breathing and felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. She talked about the times she watched me sleep and wondered if I still loved her as much as I did on our first day. "Why didn't you tell me these things?" I asked. "Because you were always busy. You came home talking about work, about money, about problems that needed solving. I thought my thoughts weren't important. I couldn't sleep that night." I lay beside Dorothy and realized that for 15 years, I had lived with a wonderful woman I had never truly known. From then on, our lives changed. Not completely, not immediately, but slowly, like the rising sun. We started to really talk to each other. Not just about utility bills or the children's schooling, but about dreams, about fears, about things that made us happy. I discovered Dorothy liked to sit in the garden in the early morning, listening to the birds sing. She had always wanted to learn piano but thought it was too late. She liked the smell of toast more than any perfume. Dorothy knew I didn't just like watching football but also enjoyed reading poetry, something I kept hidden for fear my friends would laugh. She knew I always dreamed of having a small wood workshop to make furniture by hand. She knew I sometimes woke up at night just to watch the children sleep. For the next 20 years, from when we were 40 to 60, we learned to become best friends. Not just husband and wife, not just parents, but 2 true friends who understood and supported each other. We started to laugh more, share more, dream together more. Dorothy enrolled in piano lessons at 50, and I built a small wood workshop in the garage. In the evenings, her piano playing blended with the sound of my sawing, creating a special soundtrack for our family. I realized that love isn't the thrilling, heart-pounding feeling of youth. Love is the peace of knowing there's someone who understands you completely, accepts you completely, and chooses to be with you every day. Then the biggest challenge came. In 2018, when Dorothy was 75, doctors diagnosed her with early-stage Alzheimer's. At first, it was just small things. Dorothy forgot where she put her keys, forgot the name of a neighbor we had known for 20 years. She would stand in the middle of the supermarket and not remember what she needed to buy. She would call me by the name of an old friend. "It's just old age," Dorothy said, trying to hide the fear in her eyes. But we both knew what was happening. In the following months, I watched the woman I had learned to love again gradually disappear before my eyes. Not her body. Her body was still there, still sitting beside me every morning drinking coffee. But her soul, her memories, the Dorothy I knew. There were days she looked at me like a stranger. "Who are you? Why are you in my house?" she would ask with a bewildered and frightened look. At those moments, my heart felt like it was breaking into pieces. There were nights she would wake up crying because she couldn't remember who she was, couldn't remember her children, couldn't remember her life. I would hold her and whisper, "You're Dorothy, my wife. You're a wonderful mother. You're the strongest woman I know." Friends advised me to put Dorothy in a nursing home. "Walter, you can't take care of her alone. You're old too. Let the professionals handle it." They said it with good intentions, but I couldn't. Because it was then that I truly understood what real love is. Love isn't when the other person loves you back. Love is when you still love even when it's not reciprocated. Dorothy no longer remembered our beautiful memories, no longer remembered why she loved me. But I remembered everything. And that was enough. I took care of Dorothy for the last 5 years of her life. Changed her diapers like she used to change them for our children. Fed her spoonful by spoonful when she forgot how to hold a spoon. Bathed her when she no longer remembered how to bathe. Every night before bed, I read her stories that she no longer understood. I retold our love story, how we met, how I proposed, how we raised our children. Even though she didn't react, sometimes I saw a tiny spark in her eyes. "I love you," I told Dorothy every day, even though she couldn't say it back. Because love doesn't need to be reciprocated to exist. Dorothy passed away in her sleep one spring night last year. I was sitting beside her, holding her hand. The last time I said I love you to her, even knowing she couldn't hear. After the funeral, my son Michael asked me, "Dad, do you regret taking care of Mom until the end? You could have had an easier life." I smiled and said, "Son, those were the 5 happiest years of my life." Because it was then that I knew what love is. Love is not an emotion, but a decision. The decision to stay when things get tough. The decision to care when there's nothing to receive in return. The decision to cherish memories when the other person no longer remembers. Now, as I sit alone in the house Dorothy and I shared for 58 years, I understand 3 things about love. First, true love begins when romantic love ends. Love at 20 is fire, brilliant, hot, but can be extinguished at any moment. Love at 80 is embers, not dazzling but warm and enduring, enough to warm a lifetime. Second, to love is to learn to let go of the idealized version of the other person. I once wanted Dorothy to be the perfect woman in my mind. But true love is accepting their real selves, including their flaws, their weaknesses, the times they are no longer themselves. Third, the greatest love is love that doesn't demand reciprocation. When Dorothy no longer recognized me, I still loved her. When she couldn't say I love you to me, I still said it to her every day. Because true love doesn't need to be reciprocated to exist. I end this story with one thing that 58 years of marriage has taught me: love is not about finding the perfect person. Love is looking at an ordinary person with extraordinary eyes. If you are in a marriage and feel disconnected, remember that it's never too late to learn to love again. Take the time to listen, truly listen, to your spouse. Ask them how they feel, what they dream of, what they fear. If you have lost your spouse, cherish the memories and know that love still lives in your heart. Love does not die with the body. True love is not the intense emotion of youth. True love is a gentle but firm choice, the choice to stay, the choice to understand, the choice to love every day. If my story touches your heart, please share it with someone you love. And if you have similar stories of true love, please tell me in the comments below. Subscribe to share life lessons with me, because at this age, we need to learn from each other more than ever.